Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture where we're going to talk about the this keyword. So first of all, what is the this keyword and what is it used for? Well, the this keyword is used to reference the object that is executing the current function. In other words, every function has a reference to it in its current execution context. For example, if we want to create a function that console logs a string using the this keyword, we would do it like this. Function, and make sure that it is a normal function declaration and not an arrow function, because there we cannot use the this keyword. Then we can call it something like sentence, and it's going to accept some words. Now this is our function. In that function, we're going to set the this.words to be equal to words, just like that. And then we want to console log this. What is this? We want to console log it. So now let's do something like this. Const first string. And our first string is going to be equal to new sentence. And then in the sentence, we're going to pass our string. Hello. And let's collapse this a bit. This is a sentence, just like that. Great. So let's save that. As you can see, we immediately get sentence, more specifically sentence that has words, and then the words are equal to the string we passed into that new sentence. So let's see what is going on here. First off, we set a function with an input of words, and then inside we set the this.words to be equal to our input. Then we console log this and create a variable that contains a new input of our sentence. It might be a bit confusing, and it is true that this keyword is one of the most confusing keywords in JavaScript. So let's explore it in more detail. The this keyword points to a particular object. Now, which one is that object depends on how a function which includes the this keyword is being called. So let's test it on one more example. In here, we've been calling it inside of the function, but let's try calling it inside of here. This, what is the this going to be equal to? As you can see, if this is called not inside of any of the scopes of the functions, it's going to be equal to the global window object. On that, you have a lot of properties you can use to interact with the DOM. As you can see, there's a lot of properties. You can know where on your screen is your cursor. You can do absolutely anything with it. The only thing you need to know is that if you console log the this keyword outside of all scopes, more specifically in the global scope, then it's going to be equal to the global window object. Now let's see how the this keyword behaves if it is inside of an object. So let's do something like this. Const person. And then that person is going to have a name of, let's do again John. We are overusing John, but that's okay. And then we have something like get name. And this is our function. Get name is a method more specifically. We learned about that. Functions are normal functions when they are declared outside, but when we have a function inside of an object, that's called a method. So now let's try console logging this inside of the person object. If I do that, you can see nothing happens, but what we can do is we can call person.getName. In that way, this code is going to be executed. If we do that, you can see this actually refers to the object this keyword is in. In this case, it refers to the person object whose name is John. Moving on to something you might not think has anything to do with objects or the this keyword, it is a car factory. Let's create a car factory in this video. The only thing we have to do is let's do something like this. Const, or more specifically function, car, and then this is a function we call like this, and it's going to accept some properties. In this case, it's going to accept, let's say, the color, the brand, and let's say it has the number of wheels. We can also have cars, which are, I guess, motorcycles. Now we're going to bind all of these properties by saying this.color is equal to color, this.brand is equal to brand, and then we can do this.wheels is equal to wheels. Great. Now we created a constructor function that's going to create a lot of cars. So in this case, if we were to do something like, let's do blue car, is going to be equal to new car. Notice how we are using that new keyword we explored in the last video. Now let's pass a few things. We're gonna pass blue, let's pass BMW. Now let's try console logging the this keyword in here. Now if I go ahead and save this, you can see it immediately knows that it is inside of the car factory, or a function that produces a lot of different cars, and it knows in which car is it, because we are calling it here, we're producing it, and then it console logs all of these different properties. Now, if we were to call it from a, let's say, a red car, it can be a red, let's do something like Ferrari, let Ferrari. If we save it, you can see that this keyword 2 times in the same execution context, in the same scope, it is equal to 2 different things. I think you can see why this is causing a lot of confusion amongst JavaScript community. But here are my 2 cents in this situation, and not just to comfort you. JavaScript is moving more towards a functional programming approach. That means that JavaScript will more and more use everything in a function, const func, and that's going to be an arrow function, which is going to accept some parameters, and that's it. It's moving towards functional programming, opposed to something known as an object-oriented programming. In object-oriented programming, we use a lot of these constructors known as objects, and we construct objects, and we use a lot of classes. We're going to talk about classes in the next video, but we're not going to go into details with classes or constructors, and that's for one simple reason. JavaScript is turning more and more functional every day. For example, right now I'm creating applications in the most popular JavaScript library right now for front-end applications. It's called React. Before, in React, to define something known as a component, you had to use something like this: class extends react.component, and then you would have to create a class, and then in there you had to have the constructor with props. You have to do this, all of these crazy stuff. You don't have to know any of this. Super props, you pass that in, and then you also have to define this.state. It is absolutely crazy. You have to do all of this just to be able to show a simple H1, for example. Render, and then a return, and now you can show a simple H1 here. You don't need to know any of this. Let me show you why. Functional components were introduced, and now you can basically create a function that's going to act as a component. And to do all of the things we did in the last example, the only thing you had to do is literally this: create an H1 heading, which is a function. You can see how much simpler the functional approach is. It does the same thing, but in less code. So for that reason, you don't have to know this keyword in detail, and also you don't need to know a lot about classes, which we're gonna mention in the next video. Great, you don't need to know any of this, but I just wanted to show you how it behaves. See you in the next one.